Man, I'm just going to town on this stuff. It's funny, I'm getting to the point where I'm even dreaming this stuff at night, and I just gotta say something. Uh, I think most of you know that I am not an avid follower of Q. I was there right at the beginning, back in 2017, when the first few Q drops came along, and followed it quite closely for some time, even talked about it quite extensively. And then I started finding out some anomalies in it. Of course, as I've already explained, the one about Hillary that she was going to be indicted and sent to Gitmo and all that, wearing an ankle bracelet and that type of stuff. By the way, good morning. It's Sunday morning. What is today? The 18th. My gosh, of October. My goodness. But anyway, so I was there and followed it, and then started to get very suspicious. And then by January, completely, actually, it was by Thanksgiving, I was starting to bring up some of the problems with it. And then by January, I totally rejected it and got hit with a storm of QAnonites. We didn't call them that then, but that's what I call them now because they turned it into a religion, an occultic religion at that. But at any rate, so I know a lot about Q. Like I said, I was there from the beginning, and I totally rejected it. And while I don't care if people want to use it as a source of information, like the New York Times or the Washington Post or whatever, most of the things, if not all the things in there, you could get open source in other areas. But that's not really what I'm here about. I just want to let you know that I was there from the beginning, and I know what it was all about. And I don't use it. I don't pay any attention to it whatsoever. People say, "Well, if you had paid attention to it, you'd know all this stuff was going to happen." I talked about this stuff long before Q ever came along. Okay, so no. But at any rate, what I did want to talk about, however, is the disgusting attitude of the FBI and now, of course, the House of Representatives with their House Resolution 1154. I saw Brian talking about this on impact flicks, high impact videos. And I'm aware of that, and I couldn't, in good conscience, not speak out against the hypocrisy of the FBI, the Congress, and indeed the entire social networks and the mainstream media. Absolutely, I really, in good conscience, could not fail to say something. So I thought that I would. I don't care if somebody disagrees with me. I don't care if they have a dissenting political opinion. I don't care if they support President Trump, President Biden, or a little yellow dog wagging its tail in Missouri. Okay? I don't care. They have a right to speak. They have a right to dissent. They have a right to engage themselves in political discourse, cussing, whatever they want. I would hope they use their First Amendment correctly and justly and righteously, but it doesn't say that they have to in the First Amendment. It just says you have, the right to speak. So I'm not going to sit there and encourage the censorship of somebody because they go against what I think should be said. And shame on Congress for coming out with this House Resolution 1154 condemning QAnon as a conspiracy cult. Shame on them. And shame on the FBI because the FBI came out and called QAnon a domestic terrorist organization. Well, let me see here now. Let me see here now. Yeah, they're pushing a political agenda, which is what? Supporting the president and his investigation of the corruption in government? Really? Well, the FBI would certainly be against that because they're protecting that corruption in that government, and this thing with Biden proves it, amongst other things. Of course, the Steele dossier and all that, and now information's come out that Hillary Clinton, they knew about Hillary, starting this whole thing. Now, again, I realize that Trump and Hillary are playing a drama game for us. It's wide world wrestling, right? That baloney, that pretending on the stage. I know all that, but regardless, QAnon was, I think we've had at most, I think you could count them on one hand, the number of people who have taken it maybe too far, like the guy on Hoover Dam, for instance. And there have been, two or three or four others out of the entire movement. And yet the FBI says that they're a domestic terrorist organization. Right. And the House resolution votes against it. Well, the last time I checked, the FBI knelt down in worship and agreement with BLM and Antifa. And so did police departments. And so did the DOD. And yet, they don't have 5 people out of their huge organization that isn't as big as Q, as far as I can tell. They've had not 5 people that have done terroristic things. They've burned down whole parts of cities, killed people, shot people, called for the overthrow of the elected government, and the FBI doesn't say a word. No, they kneel to them, and the Congress kneels to them. Twitter bans them. I don't like destroying the illusion. I met the guy. I actually went and met him up in Washington State. I think he took advantage of people towards the end, and I warned him not to do that. Not at that point, a little later. I talked with Tracy Beans and others. But to shut them down, to say that they can't speak their mind, talk about possible conspiracies in the government, which certainly exist, it's all been proven. But the domestic terrorism charge sticks with Q and not with BLM and not with Antifa. Do you see what side the government is on? And again, I don't care for Q. I think it's done the conservative movement. I think it's done the Christians, the conservatives, and the constitutionalists a great disservice. I do. It made them sit back and think that there were good white hats sitting behind the scenes, that the patriots are in control and everything's going to be fine. And in the meantime, the whole country burns down. Millions of people lose their jobs because of idiotic decisions in the White House. Q might be a psyop. Yeah, and I agree it is. But to silence it and to call it a terrorist organization in light of everything else that BLM and Antifa have done, and the Democratic Party itself, this is madness. So I had to lend my voice to that this morning, first thing out of the bag before I go to breakfast. Because I don't like injustice. I don't care if it happens to my worst enemy. I don't care if it is my very worst enemy and their voice is silenced, I will object. And I will stand up for their right to say it. The old saying, I may not like what you say, but I'm willing to die to make sure that you can say it. So this is not an endorsement of Q. It's an endorsement of the right of the First Amendment that God gave us and the government's supposed to protect. Yeah, I agree. I understand that they're trying to get people to stop questioning things in the long run. It's a psyop. I understand. Trust the government no matter what it does. Remember when it came out? They conveniently forgot all of this now, of course. Trust Ray, trust Sessions, trust Huber. You know, when Sessions appointed Huber, I pointed out immediately, because I worked with Huber and I brought this up at the time. I said, Huber's not going to do anything. He's a yes man. He's there to make people think that something's happening and it isn't. I worked with Huber. I know him personally. I worked with him personally. when he was a prosecutor. I know exactly what he's like. And I said he would do nothing. And I had people like Tracy Beans and Jordan Sather and all these others attack me for saying that when I knew the guy personally. But do I think that Jordan Sather and Tracy Beans didn't have a right to speak their mind? No. I told them that I knew Huber and that he wouldn't do anything, and it turned out I was right. And it looks like I've been right about Sessions and Barr and Durham and ultimately President Trump. That's all I got. You all have a great day, okay? Have a nice Sunday.